that ideation without execution is just hallucination. Some of the best originals are actually procrastinators.
When you wrote this book and called it Originals, what did you mean by an original? How do you define that?
I think about originals as people who don't just question the way we've always done it, but actually take the initiative to create a better way. So it's not just about having a new idea, it's about taking action to create change. And I think that's so important because I think it's often said that that ideation without execution is just hallucination. There's so many people who dream up interesting ideas but never do anything about them. And actually, I'll give you a personal example. When I was in university, I had a roommate. This is 2000, who had an idea for a social network, and he said, "What if we could build like an online yearbook where everybody had access to each other's profiles and they could communicate and they could plan parties?" And he stayed up all night coding it and actually building the basics of the platform. And then he never followed through and never did anything with it. And, then a few years later, Mark Zuckerberg starts Facebook and the house next door. And I could look at that and say, my roommate was an idiot. Like, why didn't he do anything about it? But guess what? I missed that same opportunity. 1999, I co-founded what was called the first online social network on our campus. And it was an e-group we had connected about an eighth of our entering college freshman class before we got to campus. And we were all exchanging messages and connecting. And then we got to campus and we shut it down because we said, we all live in the same town now. Why do we need an online community? And so I made the same mistake. I was part of a group of people that had a very original idea and we did not execute it.
So the difference is execution there.
I think it's the biggest difference.
And what does it take for someone to be an executioner?
I hope no one becomes an executioner, but maybe an executor would work. I think that it's not what I thought. I think I assumed that you had to be somebody who was always the first mover. That if you didn't act on the social network idea in those first few years, it was going to be too late. But as I think you know this already, Stephen, but I was surprised to find that some of the best originals are actually procrastinators. That they don't rush in. They wait for their best idea as opposed to just immediately implementing their first idea. And of course, they're testing and iterating and experimenting along the way. But let's go back to my Nintendo days here. I've felt like I'm not an original thinker for a long time. And one day I had a PhD student, Jihei Shin, who came to my office and said, I actually think that procrastinating can make you more creative. And Jihei is incredibly creative, and I didn't believe her. I was like, no, this can't be true. And she said, really, I have my most creative ideas when I'm procrastinating. And I didn't believe it because I guess I've always been what psychologists call a precrastinator, which is somebody who the moment you have an idea, you want to immediately put it into practice. And so I was always excited to get things done early, and I was proud of being a good finisher. And Jihei said, I actually think that's a mistake. And I challenged her to test it. And so she went out and studied people in various jobs and had them actually fill out a survey on how often they procrastinate. And then their supervisors rated their creativity. And then we ran some experiments together where we tempted people to procrastinate by putting different numbers of funny YouTube videos available while they were supposed to be doing creative tasks. And then we got their creativity scored by experts. And lo and behold, it turned out that people who procrastinate a little bit are more creative than people who precrastinate like me.